Okay, I have 10 o'clock. So this is Chairman French, and I am convening the KCC business meeting for January 21st, 2021. I am joined by Commissioner Duffy. Commissioner Keene is not in attendance today. On today's agenda, we have 14 consent agenda items, 1 noticed item, and 2 discussion items. Commissioner Duffy, you've had an opportunity to review the consent agenda. Do you have any questions or comments on it?
No, I do not, and I move we adopt the consent agenda items.
I will second that. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion's approved. Consent agenda is approved. Now we will move to our first notice item, docket number 21 GIMT 095 GIT. This is an order on KUSF year 25 assessment rate and affordable rates and the methodology for KUSF high cost support cap implementation. And our presenter is Mr. Brian Fedotin.
Yes, good morning, commissioners. On September 3rd, this docket was opened to determine the assessment rate for the 25th year of the KUSF and the affordable rates for local exchange service provided by the rural telephone companies. Staff filed direct testimony, which is unopposed, which included its calculations of the RLEX prorated annual KUSF support and resulting reductions for KUSF year 25. Therefore, since it's unopposed, there's no reason to question the accuracy of staff's recommendations or calculations. Therefore, the commission adopts staff's recommendations to set the assessment rate for KUSF year 25 at 10.84%, to set an $18.50 affordable residential service rate and a $21.50 affordable single line business service rate for the RLEX effective March 1st. Direct the RLEX intending to adjust their rates to the affordable rates to file revised local service tariffs by February 1st. Adopt the prorated annual KUSF support amounts for the RLEX as proposed by staff's direct testimony, which is attached to this order as attachment A. So with that, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fedotin. Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions or comments on the order?
No, I have no questions or comments, and I move adoption of the order.
Second, we have a motion and a second for adoption of the proposed order in docket number 21 GIMT 095 GIT. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. The motion passes. The order is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And we'll move to our discussion items. And for our first discussion items, it looks like we have another quarterly update on the from the Commission's Office of Public Affairs and Consumer Protection. And our presenter is Linda Berry, the director of our PACP office. Linda?
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
I do have an update on the second quarter results from PACP covering the months of October, November, and December. I'm going to share my screen because, of course, I have a lot of visuals to show you today.
Great.
So hopefully everyone can see that.
No.
We are not seeing anything
How
yet.
about now?
No.
Okay, well,
Michelle, do you need to share the screen?
I can't share her screen. I can only share mine.
Okay, all right.
okay, let me,
There we go.
there we go, good, okay, great. All right, so we'll start with a snapshot view of the activity within the division. Over the last 3 months, we've received 359 complaints. And in resolving those complaints, we were able to help consumers recover almost $1,200 in disputed charges. As usual, our complaints have come in from all areas of the state. The top 5 I've listed here, and you'll see the correlation between those and the largest cities throughout the state. Also, I want to mention that during this time, although our complaints were down a little bit from that same time last year when we received 504, we were very busy because our staff was processing 1,084 public comments in the docket dealing with solar rate design. And those comments came in by letter, email, through our web portal, telephone calls. And I just have to commend the staff for being so diligent and carefully assembling all of those, and so we could get those filed in the docket, and making sure that everyone who wanted to voice an opinion on that issue had the opportunity. So that was quite an undertaking there. The next slide will show you the complaint volume by month. And as you can see, October was the busiest of the 3. That's really pretty typical. Even though the complaint numbers were lower this quarter, they do follow pretty much the same pattern. And typically in October, we have more complaints. They dip down a little in November when the cold weather rule begins. And then in December, as people start having concerns about keeping their payment plans or other issues come up, they tend to rise a little bit additionally. So this is a comparison from the second quarter of fiscal year 21 to the previous year. And you can see the pattern is pretty similar, just a fewer complaints. And the next slide is broken down by the complaints by industry. And I've shown you this comparison in past presentations. The pie chart on the left shows the complaints broken down by our jurisdictional utility categories. So when you look at that chart, you see that the other category is pretty large. There are 100 in there. And those are non-jurisdictional or just non-regulated type of items that people inquire about. The chart on the right shows all industries and also whether or not they're jurisdictional or not, we've put them in the correct category. For example, if we had an electric co-op complaint, we would put it in the electric category as opposed to other, which you see on the other chart. So if you look at that, we did have a few electric and gas non-regulated complaints, but I think the majority of the others that fell in an electric, gas, or telecom category were jurisdictional here. Telecom, there was a significant amount of non-jurisdictional complaints there. And also water, which was really pretty unusual. And in talking with the staff, 20 of those complaints we received were from municipalities that did not have a cold weather rule. And they weren't from the municipality, but the customers who were concerned about disconnection. We only had one water complaint that was jurisdictional, and it was not a disconnect issue. So that's kind of gives you an overview of not only the jurisdictional picture, but then the industry as a whole and what's going on there. The next chart will show you a year-to-year comparison from the second quarter in FY 2020 versus FY 21. And you'll see a little shifting, but for the most part, there's really no startling differences there. Pretty traditional types of complaints. The next slide shows complaint categories, and these are pretty standard as well. I don't see anything really startling, other than I do want to point out that under disconnection and refusal of service, which is about halfway down, that is considerably lower than what we saw the previous year. And I can show you that on the next slide that shows the comparison. Last year, we had 74 disconnect complaints at this time. And during this period this year, there are only 29. I think the payment plans have contributed to helping with that. in addition to the cold weather rule. And then we also have some non-regulated miscellaneous billing issues. Those tend to be the top categories as well. And this is across all the industries. And that is all I had prepared. Do you have any questions?
I do, if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
On your non-regulated, was it primarily related to disconnections, do you believe?
Not necessarily. For the most part, if it was a utility, yes. We also get in that other category things that we don't regulate at all, things that would fall under the FCC's jurisdiction, things like robocalls and internet issues, those types of things.
Okay, and underwater, since we saw an increase there, and again, not jurisdictional to us, what was the primary issue related to water? Was it quality or shutoffs or what? Do you recall?
Disconnects.
Disconnects, okay, all right.
And there wasn't a specific part of the state either. They were kind of spread out a lot of different areas in the state. So they weren't all from one municipality.
So like Topeka is the water utility, the city of Topeka. Are you aware of any cities that have adopted a no shut-off requirement? And the reason I ask is as I sit in NARUC subcommittee on critical infrastructure, those commissions that have responsibility for water have issued probably more do not disconnect orders on water than perhaps other utilities, because they felt that was just the most essential service. So did any cities adopt do not disconnect during this COVID time?
I'm not aware of I'm not aware of what the data is there. I really couldn't say one way or the other. I do know that there were some cities that had assistance programs, utility assistance programs, and we tried to carefully track those so we could refer people when they called that might be available to them.
Okay, and finally, one other question with your indulgence, Mr. Chairman. When you've helped people and there's a dollar amount returned to them, primarily, what was the issue in the billing?
Sometimes it's just a billing error, or sometimes they're being charged for something that is incorrect on their bill. But I would say for the most part, it's their billing errors.
Okay, very good. And again, I think I'd like to just say that our service is part of the COVID stopgap, so that perhaps those who aren't aware of programs or don't know how to access it, we are that link to ensuring that a lot of Kansans have some help in that regard. And I thank the staff, because I know it can be difficult when you're talking with the public. It's everybody, and there's not one size fits all in dealing with them, and it can be really daunting. So I appreciate their work, Linda.
I will pass that on. Thank you very much.
Linda, I don't have any questions, but a couple comments. Obviously right now we're in a pretty unprecedented time and very concerned about disconnects. And so I really appreciate, the extra data points you can provide us that seems to be indicating that some of the programs we've been working with our utilities with are working. They're having the intended effect. We're seeing less complaints about these issues. And so that is, it's promising. And thank you for bringing that forward, and we want to continue tracking it very carefully. But it's good data. And then, the final thing, I just give you the continuing compliment and thank you and the staff for the work. I think sometimes people either don't know who to call when they have issues, or they've called the utility and maybe they just need that third party translator to step in, and you guys are always there to help be that independent third party and help get a resolution for folks. And so it's really important work that you and your staff do. And so a continuing thank you on that.
Thank you.
But that is all I have. So thank you so much for the presentation today.
One more question, if I could. Are you still working with CURB where you see maybe a larger issue that you're still the program that you were successful in developing this late summer, early fall? Is that still working well?
Yes, it is. Anytime we have a consumer call and we are unable to help, or they just need help with, especially when it comes to formal complaints, if they feel like they still need some assistance and want to file a formal, having that resource to help complete the paperwork and understand what they need has been helpful. And also on the informals, when they're non-jurisdictional, we have offered CURB as a resource as well, so that people feel like they have yet another avenue to pursue.
Very good. Good to hear that the program is continuing as it should. And kudos again for getting that established.
All right. Thank you, Linda. We will now move to our other discussion item, and this is actually a roll call vote on the adoption of regulation KAR 82430A as a permanent regulation. And we have as a presenter Ahsan Latif, litigation counsel, and it looks like we also have Mike Hamey here in case we need any technical questions answered. So with that, I will turn it over to Ahsan.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Commissioners. Transportation staff seeks commission adoption of the permanent version of KAR 82430A. The identical temporary version was adopted by the commission on October 20th, 2020, and then went into effect on October 27th, 2020, after approval by the State Rules and Reg Board. A public hearing was held on this permanent regulation change last week on January 12th. Just to quickly recap the changes, the KAR 82430A adopts portions of federal regulations 49 CFR 367 and this federal statute 49 USC 14504A, which is the Unified Carrier Registration Act. The three major changes are this regulation change would adopt the 2021 UCR fees. So we would be able to enforce the fees going into this year. Also, some definitions from the UCR Act were adopted in this version. And also, we adopted the national registration system as the main avenue for people to pay their UCR fees, which is basically paying through the UCR website. After approval by roll call vote by the commission, this permanent regulation will be sent to the Secretary of State's office and issued in the Kansas Register. The permanent version is expected to become effective before the temporary version would expire. So that would ensure that we have continuity of the enforcement of this rule. Staff anticipates no additional economic cost to motor carriers as a result of the new rules because the fees remain the same in 2021 as they are in 2020. And there are no other changes that have any economic effect in the changes we've made. Additionally, no environmental impact is anticipated. Kansas consistently has the highest percentage of carriers who pay their UCR fees of any of the participating states. And that's thanks in part to our adoption of these rules and the ability for the Highway Patrol and our staff to enforce the UCR membership in their compliance reviews. So with that, staff requests the commission adopt permanent version of KAR 82430A by roll call vote. I and Mike Hamey are here and we're happy to answer any questions if you have them. Otherwise, thank you.
Thank you, Ahsan. Before we move to the roll call vote, Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions of Ahsan or Mike?
No questions, just a comment again. I credit the staff and their due diligence in getting rules and regs done. I also think it is a bonus for all motor carriers that there is not an increase in fees. That doesn't happen very often, and it's a good thing. So thank you again, Mike and your staff, for ensuring that we are timely on this, and Asan for doing your work to see that it gets done.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass that on.
And I'll second those comments. I know rules and regs can be a slog and a never ending and repeating slog, but I thank you for your work on it. So with that, we will move to the roll call vote. We have a certificate of adoption that's been presented to us for a roll call vote. The first person I have listed for a vote on the roll call vote is myself, the chairman, and I vote yes. Next, I have listed Commissioner Keene. Commissioner Keene is absent. And finally, I have listed Commissioner Duffy. Commissioner Duffy, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Thank you. Certificate of adoption is approved by roll call vote.
Thank you.
Thank you, Son. Thank you, Mike. With that, it appears we've reached the conclusion of the items on today's business meeting agenda. Hearing no further items for consideration, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I will second the motion. All those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.